In 1981, a softcore director watched Raiders of the Lost Ark and decided he could do better. In 1986, Jackie Chan nearly died trying. Here's some of the craziest Indiana Jones ripoffs made in the 80s. The guy who directed Emmanuel spent the 70s riding that softcore wave. Then Jaws came out and basically made him irrelevant overnight. 10 years later, he's watching Raiders and decides he can make his own version. Woman goes to Hong Kong searching for her missing father who disappeared hunting a rare butterfly. She's got her maid with her, and right away they get captured and nearly sold to a brothel owner. A roguish adventurer rescues them. She pays him $2,000 to help find her dad. Turns out the father's dead, but she still wants to find that butterfly to name it after him. So the three of them head off to this legendary place called the Land of the Yik Yak. The source material was this 1940s comic by a British fetish artist who ran a bondage magazine. The whole thing was adventure serials, but explicitly sexual. They took that and made an R-rated Indiana Jones movie. The weird part is it actually works if you're okay with that tone. They shot in the Philippines and it looks gorgeous. Just got an HD restoration that makes it look way better than its budget deserved. Antonio Margheriti saw Raiders in 1981, and 4 months later he was already shooting his first knockoff in the Philippines. Then he made another one, then another one. The man ran his personal Indiana Jones ripoff series for 5 straight years. The Ark of the Sun God is about a safecracker who gets hired to go to Istanbul and steal an ancient scepter from a secret cult. It's mostly standard adventure stuff, snake pits, exotic locations, and treasure hunting. But Margheriti had a problem. He needed big car chase sequences and didn't have the budget for real stunts. So he built miniature sets and used radio-controlled toy cars, shot it to look like full-scale action. And it actually works. You're watching these elaborate chase scenes and they look expensive. The whole time it's just toys racing around a tiny diorama. There's no CGI, it's just pure trickery. The movie recently got a 4K restoration, which is insane for a cheap Italian knockoff, but it's genuinely fun if you like cheesy adventure movies. Cannon Films thought Michael Dudikoff could be a star. He'd done American Ninja, had the looks and the skills. River of Death was supposed to be his breakout, an adventurer dealing with Nazis in the Amazon after World War II, based on an Alistair MacLean novel. They were going to shoot in South America, but it was too expensive, so Cannon decided to shoot in apartheid-era South Africa instead. Dudikoff had publicly boycotted South Africa. He'd turned down American Ninja 3 specifically because he refused to work there, but Cannon sent him there anyway. The movie came out looking decent. Good cinematography, Robert Vaughn and Donald Pleasance in supporting roles, solid action sequences. The director later said the location was dangerous as hell, but they got the film made. It's a weird contradiction. The movie itself is fine, pretty underrated for late-period Cannon, but it's built on forcing an actor to compromise his principles. That was Cannon's whole approach by that point. Get the movie made no matter what. J. Lee Thompson made The Guns of Navarone and the original Cape Fear, legitimate classics. By the mid-80s, he was making Chuck Norris movies. Firewalker is basically Chuck Norris as Indiana Jones with Louis Gossett Jr. as his partner. They're treasure hunters going after some ancient artifact, standard adventure stuff, and they even brought in John Rhys Davies from the real Indiana Jones movies to give it legitimacy. Problem is, Norris was great at roundhouse kicks and playing stoic tough guys, but he couldn't do charming and quick-witted like Harrison Ford. The movie needed that, and it just wasn't there. Still, Firewalker was one of Cannon's better box office performers in 1986. Then shortly after, Cannon went into financial receivership. A Chuck Norris adventure comedy was one of the movies that helped sink the studio. Hong Kong police and Russian gangsters are chasing this alien crystal that gives people powers. The crystal needs to be reunited with a dormant alien who's trying to get home. Standard sci-fi adventure with lots of martial arts, shot in Greece with gorgeous locations. Except this came out in 1986, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which has basically the same plot, came out in 2008. A Hong Kong knockoff accidentally predicted the fourth Indiana Jones movie 22 years early. They shot large parts of it in Greece without permission, just showed up and started filming around ancient monuments. All those people in the background during fight scenes aren't extras. They're confused tourists who had no idea a movie was being shot. They grabbed their footage guerrilla style and got out. Pulled off an entire production through pure hustle. A professional photographer wrote a screenplay. His only previous writing credit was just one of the guys. He wrote The Golden Child as a serious supernatural thriller. He described it as a Raymond Chandler detective story with supernatural elements. He wanted Mel Gibson to play the lead. Paramount bought the script and gave it to Eddie Murphy instead. They turned it into a comedy. The writer was devastated, called the whole experience a nightmare. After the first test screening, Paramount panicked. They ordered extensive reshoots to cram in more Eddie Murphy comedy moments. Then they did something even more drastic. They ripped out the entire original film score. This was a rich, atmospheric score by John Barry, an Oscar-winning composer. Paramount threw it out and replaced it with something funkier that fit Murphy's style better. Charles Dance, who played the villain, later summarized what they ended up with pretty bluntly. Basically, what you got was Beverly Hills Cop in Tibet. And here's the really wild part about all this. Eddie Murphy had personally chosen The Golden Child. He had 20 other projects that had been developed specifically for him, and he picked this one because he called it the best script he'd ever read. Years later, Murphy called the finished film a piece of shit. But the movie made over $150 million on a $25 million budget, so Murphy kind of shrugged about the whole thing. Steven Spielberg was producing The Goonies and needed someone to direct it. He gave the job to Richard Donner. Spielberg was known for making the best kids' movies in the world. Richard Donner, on the other hand, admitted he never liked children. His first reaction when Spielberg offered him the movie was, "Why me?" But Spielberg wanted him anyway. Turns out Spielberg was so hands-on during production that he ended up directing several scenes himself anyway. The movie follows a bunch of small-town kids who find a treasure map leading to a pirate ship full of gold. They're trying to save their homes from developers, criminals are chasing them, and they end up in these underground caverns full of booby traps and puzzles. One of the kids played Short Round in Temple of Doom the year before, so he already knew the Indiana Jones routine. It's been 40 years and The Goonies still holds up. And the more I watch it, the more convinced I am that Jeff Cohen as Chunk is the MVP of the whole thing. That kid committed completely to every moment. Cannon Films decided to make their own Indiana Jones movie, so they adapted King Solomon's Mines with Richard Chamberlain as Alan Quatermain, which is kind of perfect because Quatermain was one of the literary characters that inspired Indiana Jones in the first place, so this is less of a ripoff and more like coming full circle. Chamberlain understood what the movie needed. He's got that easy, grinning adventurer charm that Harrison Ford had, and then there's Sharon Stone in a supporting role, just lighting up every scene before anyone really knew who she was. Except Sharon Stone wasn't supposed to be in this movie at all. Producer Menahem Golan told his production team he wanted that Stone woman for the female lead, so the production went and hired Sharon Stone. Turns out Golan had been talking about Kathleen Turner. You know, the star of Romancing the Stone, but Turner was too famous and too expensive by that point, so they got Sharon Stone entirely by accident. Years later, Golan bragged about discovering Sharon Stone, said she was a nobody before Cannon Films made her a star. He never once mentioned that he'd been trying to hire someone else and his team misunderstood him. The movie's got Jerry Goldsmith doing the score and John Rhys Davies in the cast. Solid talent all around. Cannon planned it as the first of a trilogy and actually filmed the sequel back-to-back with the first one, but Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold bombed so catastrophically that they canceled the third film completely. Jackie Chan made his own Indiana Jones movie in Hong Kong. He plays a treasure hunter named Asian Hawk. He's trying to recover pieces of the Armour of God while rescuing his friend's girlfriend from a cult. It's got all the wild stunts and physical comedy you'd expect from a Jackie Chan film. Early in the shoot, Chan was filming a stunt where he had to jump from a wall to a tree branch. He fell from the tree and cracked his skull on a rock. Got a permanent hole in his head about the size of a thimble. The fall also gave him permanent hearing loss in one ear. They had to do brain surgery immediately. There wasn't time to fly him to a better-equipped hospital, they just had to operate right there. 7 days later, Jackie Chan was back on set finishing the movie. But because of the injury, they had to completely change the film. They'd planned all those big action sequences, but Chan needed time to actually recover, so they scrapped them and replaced them with romantic comedy scenes instead. That's why the middle section of Armour of God drags. It exists entirely because Jackie Chan nearly died on day one, and they had to rewrite half the movie while his skull healed. Fox hired Robert Zemeckis to direct an adventure movie. Kathleen Turner plays a romance novelist who writes about some adventurer character, basically her version of Indiana Jones. And then she gets thrown into a real adventure in Colombia trying to rescue her kidnapped sister. Michael Douglas plays a treasure-hunting mercenary who gets roped into helping her. Zemeckis starts shooting and sends early footage back to Fox. The studio watches it and decides it's terrible. So terrible that they fired him from his next project. He was supposed to direct Cocoon next, and they gave that job to Ron Howard instead. Zemeckis went back and did reshoots on Romancing the Stone, fixed whatever Fox thought was broken. The movie came out and made over $100 million on a $10 million budget. Fox looked pretty stupid after that, and Zemeckis took that box office success and used it as leverage to get his next film greenlit. That film was Back to the Future. The really ironic part is Fox had rushed the entire production because they were terrified of competing with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which was releasing the same year. They wanted to beat it to theaters and avoid the comparison. Didn't matter. To this day, most people just remember Romancing the Stone as that Indiana Jones knockoff, even though it was a massive hit.